Hello, everyone. Welcome to another inspiring edition of Faces of Resilience. This is your host, Furley Almonte, and joining me today is really one very inspiring woman. Well, many of us are going through many transitions in life, and oftentimes it also involves changes in relationships. Marriages fall apart, lovers break up, and oftentimes it leaves us broken into pieces that you do not know that you've lost your identity. Oftentimes, you do not know where to begin to pick up the pieces and move forward in life with a brand new beginning. Well, you're not alone. There are so many of us who have gone through tragedies in life, whether it be a breakup, a divorce, a loss of a loved one to death, and many other tragedies. It's really very, very hurtful. And oftentimes we just want to hide in shame. Sometimes we just want to numb the pain by being, away from the public. We just want to be able to nurse ourselves back, but oftentimes it's not as easy when you don't have the help or the motivation or the support that you need. Well, today we're going to talk about many different things. And joining us today is actually the CEO of Life After Storms. And for 10 years, she's been helping people who have gone through tragedies in life, anxiety and the grief. She helps people rise above all of those and become resilient so they can find joy in their lives again. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you my friend, Dr. Rebecca Fein. Hi, Doctor. How are you, Dr. Rebecca?
I'm well, Furley. How are you? Thank you for
Well,
having me on your show. This is
oh,
awesome.
oh my goodness. I was actually really very thrilled that we reconnected on Facebook because it's been years since when we first met each other. And then we've spoken a number of times, but for some reason it kind of fell on the cracks and we lost touch, right? And so many things have happened in the process. And the next time I knew, you were already a doctor. You got your doctorate degree, and also you've gone through some transitions in your life, and you're looking very vibrant and charming as
Thank
ever.
you.
Yes, yes. And so I'd love to know what you've been through because oftentimes people end up doing um, coaching or educating or inspiring people from the pain that they've risen from. So, would you be kind enough to share a little bit of your story?
So all of the gory details can be read about in my book called Tears in a Jar, which is on Amazon and all over the place. But at a very high level, so that's why I put that in there because some people might kind of go, "What is she talking about?" But at a very high level, 2 weeks after I asked my husband for a divorce, I found myself put in a psychiatric unit by my first husband, the pastor and nurse at the church, and my own family of origin. And so I found myself in complete isolation. Essentially, I spent 6 days because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday don't count in your 72-hour hold, which I personally think is ridiculous because that's 3 days of my life that I'm never getting back. So, I feel like, look, I've got so much time on this earth and you just stole time from me. I don't feel that way so much anymore, but that's kind of the short version of it. Then I did not really have a meaningful relationship with my children. And in some respects, there are still a lot of strains there as well for about 10 years. And when he died in 2014, we had already been divorced, but I had to go back to court, have a custody hearing against the dead. 2.5 hours of that 3-hour hearing was on my affiliation with Judaism. I kid you not. It was just absolutely insane that in 2014, that's what we had to do. And then I had some drama with his family and then some other people thereafter. And now I'm just so grateful that my children are all adults. I left that marriage with the clothes on my back. And here I am sitting here talking to you with a thriving practice, also with a day job that I have that I get paid and having completed my doctorate degree. So
Oh. Well, I love the fact that this had a happy ending, but I'd love to know, first of all, because like there were some details of your story that was quite striking, and I'm sure many people are very intrigued. Why would your ex-husband or late husband, late ex-husband,
It's,
right?
I know it's like
Late,
when I talked to a woman a while back, and I was telling my current husband about this actually. So I talked to this woman like about 3 months ago now, and she's like, "Well, should I go to my ex-husband's funeral?" And I said, "Well, I did, and everybody told me I shouldn't go." And I said, "So what does that say to my children? Their father's dead and their mother doesn't show up." I was like, "What's the message there?" You know. And then everybody backed off of it. So it's like it's funny. I know it's like there should be a handbook, like right.
right?
My
It's like, okay, it's my late ex-husband. So right, like that. So anyway, so what exactly went wrong with your marriage that actually led to the divorce? Without having to go through all the details, of course. If you could make it general.
so
So
there were a lot of things that went wrong, but primarily the main problem was, I was in a box that didn't work for me. I had a bachelor's degree in Eastern European studies, and I was living in the Midwest. There was no opportunity for me to use that degree. I had to turn down job opportunities that would move because he didn't want to move. He probably had some enmeshment with his mother. There was all sorts of problems, but primarily I was really in this kind of stifled box where, it was if I went to work, well, why aren't you home with the kids? And if you're home with the kids, well, you're not being productive. He actually told the judge I contributed nothing to the marriage.
wow.
The joke's on him because the judge's wife was a stay-at-home mom. So
What was his ground for actually being, for sending you to what did you say, like you went onto a
the psychiatric unit. So the way that I describe this to people, and I think this is the way I describe it in the book also. So my children were 3, 4, 7, and 8 when we adopted them. And in October of 2006, I had a day. So just like when you are going to the grocery store, right? And you're thinking, I need to get eggs and milk and butter and whatever. Like you've got this whole list kind of going on in your head. So I was sitting trying to do something, which I no longer recall what it was, which is pretty funny because I remember all kinds of arcane nonsense. But anyway, I was trying to do something and I was standing in the kitchen. And just in that same way, I had this thought where I was like, I could so easily drown all of you. And I thought, what is this? Like, where is this coming from? And so I called my husband at the time, my first husband, and I asked him to please come home because this was very disturbing to me. I didn't really know what was going on. And so he yelled at me, hung up the phone. And I called my friend who lives actually not far from where you are. And at that point, I was just weeping. So I couldn't even say hello when he answered the phone. I was just weeping at that point because my anxiety had just gone through the roof. And why am I having this thought? And what the hell is happening? And it was just a bad scene. Everybody was okay, but I was just a mess. So he said to me, he says, "Who died?" I said, "No one." I said, "I can't believe, I don't know what's happening to me." And he says, "Look," he says, "my kids are 5 and 3. My wife and I have each had this day. This is just, this is a normal part of parenting, and it's okay." And he says to me, why didn't your husband come home when you called him?" And so he just kind of sat and talked to me. And then nothing was said when my first husband came home. Like nothing was said. For 6 months, nothing was said, just about. And then I turned 30 on February 19, and February 23rd, they were carting me off to the psych unit. And the day after the whole incident, I had actually gone to see my therapist, and I said the same thing to my therapist. I said, "Look, I don't know, like, what is this about? Like, why would I have this thought circulating in my head? This is really disturbing." And one of the things that my ex-husband tried to use against me in court when we got divorced was that I said, I can understand how somebody does fall over the line, right? There's a very fine line. And like, we get shaken baby syndrome because like people just don't have support. They can't get control. Like, I'm not saying that to condone people doing that. I don't think we should shake babies, right? But I'm a compassionate person. I understand that there's a fine line. Someone can easily fall over it. And so I was disturbed that I was even like having this thought because I was like, okay.
And what did your therapist say?
My therapist said the same thing my friend said. He said, look, my wife and I have each had this day. He said, you made very good choices. This is a normal part of what we experience as parents. He said to me, he kind of laughed. Actually, he thought I was like overreacting, which perhaps I was, but what did I know? I mean, it was really, it was very frightening. And he was very conciliatory about it. He was really good about it. And so, I went home and didn't think anything about it again. And interestingly enough, it was a recurring theme. I mean, even after my ex-husband died, it was, well, you were involuntarily committed. Well, first of all, I was put in on a 72-hour hold. That is not an involuntary commit. And second of all, I took the records to a psychiatrist I used to go to church with, because he said to me, I haven't seen you in a while. And so I said, you know what? I would like an outside opinion about something. Are you going to be here? And he goes, yeah. And I said, all right, let me go. So I grabbed like all the records. So like everything, like from my therapist, from like everything. And the first thing he did was looked at the petition to put me in. And he said, well, first of all, this is not imminent risk. There's no dates on these things. He goes, imminent risk is like, I walk into the bathroom and I catch you, or later that same day, or like whatever. He goes, first of all, 6 months later, he goes, this is not imminent risk. One, he goes, two, there's no date. So how do you prove imminent risk, even if it was the same day? And he looks at me and he goes, three, he goes, this is illegal what was done to you. And unfortunately, what I've learned over time is that this is a very common strategy that's used in family courts to discredit somebody, because everything, even after he died, it was, well, she's just the crazy lady. And then it was, well, you were involuntarily committed. And then it was, oh, well, you go to a synagogue now, so you won't let the kids go to church. And we had a 2.5 out of a 3-hour hearing on my affiliation with Judaism in the United States in 2014. And I said to my attorney, I was like, what difference does it make what my religious preference is? If the kids want to go to church, they could go to church. Like, I don't care. But that's what we had like this whole little inquisition with those church people still trying to put a wall between me and my children, even after he passed away.
It's very interesting what you were saying, that it took 6 months. If there was the incident that you were a threat, for instance, like, why would it take 6 months for somebody to take action? Obviously, you were not a true threat.
And this is a question that a number of people have asked me, including a number of mental health professionals that I saw afterwards, because when I got out of the hospital, they send you with aftercare plan and stuff like that. And a couple of them, they did ask me that. They said, well, that doesn't make sense. And one of them even said to me, if you were really this bad, like, that doesn't happen overnight. So where was your husband? Like, what's that about? So it is. And it was a very strange time too, because like one of the things that I don't remember if they put it on the petition or where they had put it. One of the things they'd put down was that my house was a mess. And I used to say to people, I have 4 kids and a husband. If the house is a mess, he can pick up something too. I was like, you try chasing a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 7, an 8-year-old and see how you do, just by yourself. Like, and it's funny because that just came up in another group I'm in with a woman who was talking about, how women feel, right, about messy houses. And I started to laugh and I said, my attitude was, no, I have a husband. He could pick that up too. Like, there's only so much each one of us can do as an individual, right? Like, it doesn't matter. There's only,
you have touched upon so many different areas. Actually, I wish I have another show aside from Faces of Resilience called the D Word, which is actually, the D stands for divorce, despair, death, and disability, and how we lead people to dazzling destinies. Actually, my co-host in that show is Carolina Denhard. She's a family law and international law attorney. And I keep, while you're talking, I keep thinking, oh, I wish I could have Dr. Rebecca on the show, because I would be very interested to know what what Carolina Denhard, the attorney, would be able to say about this case. Because, actually, I think I'm going to invite you to that show, because this is a really very interesting topic, and so many people who are victimized, just like what you've been through. Like, people are being victimized. And for me, like, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a judge, but I'm just like, I felt like it was so unnecessary. And as I've said that we may not have spoken a lot during the past, but you always sounded really very level-headed to me. And so now that he's gone, now that you're divorced, how were you able to overcome all of that and be able to move forward in your life? How did you feel at that moment? First of all, how did you feel at that moment when you were actually put in a this controlled environment to be assessed. Or
It was horrible. I can't really describe it adequately to everyone. I had a therapist when I got out who said to me, well, you have a lot of trust issues. And I said to her, well, if you can't trust your parents, your spouse, or your minister, who can you trust? Um, and that sort of is the best descriptor. There really is no good way to describe that. It was absolutely horrible. It was a horrible experience. There are many reasons for that. Again, some of which are in the book and some of which are not. But it was just is a terrible, terrible ordeal. And I could go on forever about the things that I think are really wrong with how we do mental health and assessments based on that. But then at the same time, kind of leading to your other question there, right?
yeah,
But then at the same time, it was also very freeing because, I grew up in New Jersey, which is, of course, where you are. And my mother's a therapist. My father was a pastor. We went to church every Sunday. I did everything right, went to high school, went to college, didn't have sex till I was married. I did everything that was asked of me. I mean, I know it's funny, but it's true. Like, I did everything right, right? And in the end, the psychiatrist who I was seeing while I was in the hospital did not want to release me to my first husband. He didn't feel that I was a threat or anything like that. He didn't want to keep me. He just didn't want to release me to my first husband. He felt there was some stuff going on there that he didn't feel comfortable releasing me to him. So they suggested I call my father. And my father said, well, be responsible for your life. I have a wife now. And I did everything right. I did everything that my parents ever asked of me. And that was the response when I had nothing and no one.
so
That
who,
was the
where
response.
did you get support from?
So interestingly enough, my former brother-in-law came and picked me up, and my first husband was in the car with him because it was snowing, and so he wanted a second person. And in hindsight, he thinks that was probably a mistake because they got out of the car, and my first husband looks at me and he says, "Are you going to behave now?" And my brother-in-law and I looked at each other, and I swear to you, I will take that moment to my grave, just that exchange that we had, just looking at each other like, what? And then, of course, came the list of rules under which I could come home. But to your point, I think it was a day or two after I woke up, and I was like, well, I've been tossed out like a used tissue. And I did everything right. And, look what happened to me in the first 30 years of my life. I spent living it the way other people said I should live it, right? And so then I decided, well, why am I living my life the way these other people think I should live it if this is what I'm getting for it? I mean, they say, right? Family, my father used to give me this bullshit about, oh, well, you'll, if you went to jail for murdering someone, we'd come visit and we'd back you and all that. It was like a bunch of nonsense that he used to tell me. And my mother used to do similar things. She used to say to me, oh, you don't have to be afraid if you're doing the right thing. And, but you do. You do, and you have to make your own path. And so I think it was maybe my third day that I woke up. I don't remember which, but I decided that I was done. And I still have to remind people sometimes. Up until my dad died, I still had to remind him certain times that I would say to him, you know what? The first 30 years of my life are for the rest of you. The next 30 are all me. I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. You've demonstrated that it's not worth the effort.
Very
And
interesting
really hard.
with everything that you're talking about. It boils down to the thing that you said, why your marriage crumbled is because you were put in a box. And all your life, basically, you're saying that you were put in a box, expected to do what is taught of you while you were, growing up. And so you wanted to be free. You wanted to, break the rules that were imposed on you that no longer served you.
Right.
So when was that pivotal moment when you said, enough is enough, I am going to live my life the way I want it? When was that moment?
I think that was on day 2. I think that was the day 2 when I woke up. So, because, I went in, I was crying. It was a horrible scene. And as I said, it's detailed in the book. And I the next day I woke up and I said, okay, I need to figure that out. What is that? Because don't forget too, I was in this box, right? So now it's, well, what would I do if I wasn't in this box, And then as time went on, I mean, it was very challenging, right? Because you have to be in a box when you're in a place like that to a certain extent. So it became sort of this challenging thing of, well, I have to be kind of stuck in this box, but I'm leaving the box and going over here type of thing. And then when I got out, after all of the crazy stuff with, discharge planning and everything, I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And then I had to keep building that because I had such a hard time, right? Then I went to court, I filed for divorce because, my ex and the church wouldn't let me see my children and all of this. And I was like, all right, well, I'll go to court then. The courts will give me access. And, and that was very naive of me, to put it mildly. I've even heard stories now of women who have gone to court and said that they were domestic violence victims, which they were. And then the courts then tell them, oh, well, you've prolonged your child's exposure to that, so now we're taking your kids. And I know women who have been through that. So, but I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, well, I'll go to court and they'll, So, yeah, it was definitely while I was still in, probably that second morning that I woke up. But certainly then when I came out, I had to start planning it because I think I'd been out for 3 days when he gave the rules that I could come home under to my former brother-in-law, who just laughed and said, well, I've been asked to give you this and I think it's ridiculous, but here you go. And it was, this ridiculous stuff like multitask and, oh, understand we're not out to get you. And it's like, no, you are really out to get me. The patients that were in with me were taking bets as to when I was going to file for divorce. There was a whole thing around, you better leave before he kills you. And, I mean, it was very difficult. I see there's comments that are coming in, Furley. Do we need to address our comments?
Do I see it? Okay, hold on.
I don't know. I just saw a little light thing.
Yeah. Oh. Crazy comments you don't want to hear. Okay. Okay, Anna, go right ahead.
Crazy comments about what a crazy kook I am? That's okay.
No, it says like, they want to see your toes. Something weird. Okay. Anyway.
They want to see my toes? I don't think I can bend that far.
Don't worry about it. Okay, let's go ahead. And so now, how did the transformation come about? How did the healing start?
So that's a whole long story too. So,
okay, give me a 5-minute version of it.
Yeah. So the 5-minute version of it is this. So there are certain things in my life that were always outside of the box that I knew were where I needed to be. And we probably all have that in our lives, And I decided that I was going to start embracing some of those things. And so one of those things was I started to go to synagogue. And my first time in this particular synagogue, one of the women said to me, do you have any children? It was really rough for me. And she said to me, oh, this is awful. And it was the first time somebody ever said to me that this is awful. And then I think it was a different day I went, and there was another thing that had been happening where people that I knew, people I had gone to church with for years, were like staring at me in the grocery store like I was some kind of like devil spawn. I mean, it was really very difficult. And they had started to call my psychiatrist for things. Like it was like, oh, well, her phone bill was this high. And the psychiatrist was like, yeah, and she's looking for a job. What's your point? I mean, like all of these little bizarre things started to happen. And so I went back, so I was back at synagogue, and the rabbi, he said to me, just say hello. So I started to say hello, and then people would scatter. Like it was this really funny thing to me because I was like, that's really funny. And I started to just do a lot of inner work about like, what do I want? So you were talking about my doctorate degree. So it's a doctorate of health science. It's in global health. So it sort of ties all of my academic career together because I use some of my informatics background and some of my business background and stuff like that. And, I did the MBA because I wanted to go to grad school, but I didn't want to disrupt my life. And that was what was available to me at the time. But my doctorate of health science. I've actually graduated from medical school, which was a dream of mine from when I was 8 years old, but just not in the way that I thought I was going to. Because when I was 8, my dad and his friend, who's a cardiologist, sat me down and said, women don't become doctors, women marry doctors. So you can't even remember it anymore because I have it in my head the wrong way now. And so it's a huge accomplishment. Like it's like I can't wait till I get to hitting my frame up, because my frame came and I'm a little choked up thinking about this. I think I'm gonna put it above my desk here. And I just had to remind myself, right, that again, like this is the old, and now we're going forward. I had a funeral for myself. I did it in private, obviously, because if I did it in public, that would have led more fuel to the fire. But I had a funeral for myself, and I said, okay, this is the old, and now we're going to go forward. And then he died. And then we had to go back to the old for a while, and that was very, very difficult because you
All
had to go
the
back to
time
the
your
fast
children
field.
were with him?
All the time the children were with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I even had gotten a call from Protected Services if they wanted to change custody. So I went back and we did that, and then the judge told Protective Services their opinion was irrelevant, and so he still kept the kids. I mean, it was a whole thing. But it was mostly just that transformation was mostly just, I'm saying goodbye to this old. Like that was the old. And I actually, like, one of the things I have my clients do is like make a list of everything they need to say goodbye to move forward, and find rituals to do that. And I tell them, that I did have a funeral for myself because I wanted to have that closure for me. That was something I needed to do for me. But there's a lot of soul searching. It's funny. My mother had a lot of difficulty with the Orthodox Jewish community. But they really became my family. And I never formally converted in, but they really became my family when I didn't have anyone. And that really allowed me to be able to kind of move forward, because now I was an outsider, but it was new, but it was, better space for me, kind of a more liberated space for me in many respects.
Well, actually, like, your healing was basically it's you making a decision that I want to move forward. I'm saying goodbye to the old Rebecca. I'm saying goodbye to my past. It no longer defines me.
And
Am I
that's actually, yeah, and that's actually like when I took the name Fein, which created a whole scandal in my family. My father and my uncle, they both called me. Remember what I told you? My father left me at the hospital. And then later we see my father, my last memory of him is actually with those people in the court after my ex-husband died, leading the Inquisition against me. But remember what I told you, right? He left me at the hospital. So when he found out that I was changing my name to Fein and not going back to my maiden name, he was very angry with me, and he says, well, how can you give up this name? And I said, well, quite frankly, what have you done for me lately? I don't want to look at my name and think about that and feel ill and think about you left me. I want to look at my name and feel good and think about people who choose me. And this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm moving forward, and I don't care what you think. And he goes, well, then I guess we'll recognize it. And I was like, I was like, all right, recognize it, don't recognize it. This is what is.
So how did you come about teaching people and basically coaching people on how to overcome anxiety and grief?
So I started that when I was actually still in my first marriage. So I started that in 2006, 2005, 2006, more informally. And then in 2010, I went and got my certification. And in 2010, so my parents got divorced in 2006. And I was in a community back in 2005, I think, after they had separated. So I think they separated in 2002. But anyway, so I was in this community, and I was watching all of these people and their spouses and, adults. If you're an adult and your parents get divorced, it's really its own special place of pain, because you're no longer a child. So the courts can't protect you. Your parents think you're their confidant. All sorts of other things happen. Grandparenting. I could tell you stories about dealing with my parents with my children after their divorce, which I won't because that's not what we're here for, but another time perhaps. And I got tired of watching all of this. And so in a
So you got
parallel sense,
certified to be, is it certified life coach, or was there a specific training for
yeah, so I
people?
went so I went to the World Coach Institute and I certified as a relationship and bereavement coach. I certified in both. It's a dual certification. Um, and it's interesting because I did that, of course, after my stuff, but it's sort of a parallel track to what I went through, because when you're an adult and your parents get divorced, then you have a whole situation, right, where you have to reinvent your family dynamics. You have to set these boundaries. It's not quite the same because you're not usually having to go quite as far as I had to go, where it's like, okay, who am I now? But it's really, what's my family like now, right? Like, how do I have one of my first clients, her father threw a tantrum at her wedding because he wasn't getting enough attention.
So
And it's like,
let's talk about, okay. By the way, there was a question. You have already mentioned that you are a doctorate of global sciences. Did you say
health science, yes.
public health, right?
Close enough. We'll go with that.
No, say it because somebody was asking on the chat room. Like your doctorate is in what?
It's in health sciences. It's a doctorate of health sciences in global health.
Okay, so like that. There was a question of Okay, I'm trying. I don't have my glass, but I can just see that. So
Oh,
anyway,
here, I can blow.
okay, so now because of what you were witnessing in the places where you are hanging out, like socially and also for religious gathering, you see people going through divorce, having strains in their relationship. You want to help both with the bereavement as well. And so now, so how did it help you also heal and become open to finding love again? Obviously, not you've been divorced. Okay, your ex-husband also passed on. Do you have your children?
So my children are all adults now. I did get custody of my youngest two, but they're all adults, kind of doing their own thing. My oldest one is still at home with me. He's going to school. I see somebody wanted to know if I was jailed. No, I was not jailed ever. Um, but I saw that when I looked in to see what I was a doctor of, and see it's the same individual. Um, so I have two grandchildren now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of exciting. But yeah, so I mean, I just.
What changed in you that you began to learn to trust again and find love? Where did you meet him?
I actually had known him well before my first husband, actually. I'd known him about 15 years when we got married. In fact, that was a funny story, too, because one of the times that we went to court, my ex-husband's attorney asked how long I had known him. And I was like, 15 years. And you could just see her face deflate because she was hoping it was going to be like, 5 minutes and she could try to make a stability argument. So anyway, so what changed was, again, I'm doing my own thing, right? I went ahead, changed my name. Would have changed my first name, but couldn't come up with a good first name that I liked, so just changed my last name. And I just started to be able to be open to those things. I don't think that anybody really wants to be alone. I mean, I always say that if this marriage fails, I'm not doing it again.
So what was so special about your husband? What's his name?
His name is Sid.
Sid? Okay.
Sid.
Like, what is so special that you've seen in him that made you trust and love again?
So, Sid is an interesting character because he doesn't try to like step on me, for lack of a better analogy. We're both our own individuals, and he doesn't try to put me in a box, which is the best piece. And and we had many conversations about this, before we got married. I was like, I'm not going to do this, with these expectations of being in a box or whatever else was on my list. I don't remember my whole list. I have it somewhere because I'm sure I have it around here somewhere because I have like everything around here somewhere. And we had a lot of conversations, and he was like, I don't want to take your freedom. And I was like, I like who I am today. I don't want to have to go through and we've all been in those places, right, where you kind of have to be very different than who you are, and I don't want to do that. I don't like that.
Yeah, actually, I could relate to what you're also saying because the need to be free about who we are is really a big factor that keeps a lot of marriages um, either going to succeed or not. Because, like, I'm speaking for myself as well. Because in my past relationships, I felt like my wings were clipped. Oftentimes, I felt like I could not be me because they were always afraid that they would lose me. And so, what makes my marriage right now so beautiful is the fact that for the first time in my life, I feel very free to be me. I am, there's no insecurity, there's full trust. I can be the person that I dream of becoming. And just like what you were saying, in a box, because from what I'm hearing from beginning to end, it's a very long, colorful story of your life, and very hurtful in many areas, and obviously very life transforming in so many areas as well. Is that it all boiled down to the fact that you were put in a box. You did not want to be there because it's almost like you have to live based on the rules of others, not your own. And you wanted so very much to feel free to be you, to pursue your dreams, to be able to bring value to the world with what you're doing right now. Obviously, you've written also a book called Tears in a Jar. It's on Amazon, and I heard that you're going to be also interviewed, right? I'm very excited for you. So, so
Thank you.
yeah, so the Tears in a Jar is basically a memoir. Is it? Is it like?
Yeah, so it's a memoir that goes over. Well, I don't know what a technical memoir is, right? It doesn't do my entire life, but it does some things leading up to this time period and a little bit after that divorce period. And I wrote it. I think I might have told you this. I've told this to a few people who have specifically interviewed me about the book. So it's written for three purposes. It's written, first of all, for others who have gone through this, whether they're women or not, so that they know that they're not alone. It's written for people like your colleague, Caroline, I think you said her name was, and other people who do like custody evaluations, attorneys,
Oh,
judges.
Arlena Denhard, yes.
Yeah, people within the legal system to try to, like, first of all, recognize these things and bring some change if we can, and things like that. And also written in many respects for the children. And, I tried to be kind to everyone, but I feel that, my children, like my daughter especially, she has no idea how hard I fought. And there are limits to what fighting we can do, right? And there are limits to resources. And it's called Tears in a Jar for very special reasons. I don't know if you want me to go into all of that, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
so that's what it
that
is.
overview that you have said. By the way, there's a question in here from one of our listeners about, like, he's already with somebody new. He has a girlfriend, but he is still in love with his ex. What will he do? What should he do?
So I
Actually,
saw that. I didn't know if you wanted me to address that on the show
well,
or not,
actually,
but
I would like to answer that. Like, if the role were reversed, what would you do? What would you want your girlfriend to do? Because unless you put your place in that same situation, you'll never understand how it feels also for that current girlfriend to have to feel that she has you, but your heart is not with her. And there comes a moment, I guess, that you have to reflect of what you really want in your life and how fair you want to be. If you really want to move on, or maybe it did not work well with your ex, and you still have that feeling. Oftentimes we have a special place in our heart that could not be filled, but there always be big spaces in there that others will be able to fulfill. You see, oftentimes we we move on. Like, when we move on in our life, you have to make some kind of a decision. Are you done with why did your relationship before did not work? because like that is a very loaded question. And maybe that person has also moved on already, but obviously you have moved on. How fair would it be to your current person, to your current girlfriend, if you are not being honest with your feelings? Perhaps this is one moment that you want to reflect on yourself, on what you really want to do. um, Perhaps you can um, sort make a decision. You have to make a decision whether, if the other person is still available and you want to work it out with her, you have to set the new girlfriend free to find somebody who is deserving of her, a faithful love. But either way, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But otherwise, also give yourself time to heal, and let bygones be bygones. Let the past go, and create moments that you can actually begin to nurture your new relationship. Because obviously that person trusts you. There is no simple way to answer that question, because we cannot, our feelings are not faucets that you can just turn on and off. We can just say like, oh, I don't want to love this person anymore. When you have something special about them, it remains there for a while. But out of respect, and also based also on your decision to move forward in life, and out of respect for your new girlfriend, I truly believe that you need to make a decision on what you want to do. Either you have to be fully faithful to the one you're with now, and begin to let go of the one that you've had before. As I said, there's no simple way to describe that. I want to also share with you guys that I've been through a very bad divorce, but I've learned to forgive that past of mine, because I don't want that baggage to continue to hurt me. It's almost like you're holding on to a hot coal with the intention of hurting somebody with it. But in the process, you hold on to that anger, to that resentment, that you end up hurting yourself. So let go. Let go of relationship that no longer serve you. Let go of feelings that no longer serve you. So you can begin to free yourself to find love again. Dr. Rebecca found her wonderful Sid. And also from her many life lessons, she has learned to help others who are going through grief and also anxiety move forward in life of joy. I am very happy that you're happy now. I'm happy that you've actually put your lessons, in a book, so that all those tears are now in a jar, you know, um, and let there be just like, these are past memories that you can obviously let go of. What can you give me three three quick tips on how do you move forward in life to find joy and freedom after a catastrophic relationship?
So the very first thing is you have to remember that you have a choice. You can sit and wallow in that, or you can get up and go and build something. And that was how it first hit me. My first thought was, I can wallow in this or I can move forward. So that's the first thing. It's a decision. It's a decision that I'm going to build rather than wallow. Then the second question is, what am I going to build, right? What does joy and love look like to me? What should my life look like? Once you decide what that is, that's when you have to look at, what am I carrying? What do I have to say goodbye to move forward? And then the third one is, you just have to make sure that as you're doing things, right, does this really fit with my picture? You really have to ask, does this fit with my picture? So one of the things, for example, when I got married again, I did not want to change my name. I had just finished all the paperwork. It took me forever to change my name. I wasn't going to do it again. And I felt like I don't want to do it again. This is my maiden name 2.0, and this is who I am. Deal with it. So what did Sid say? Sid said, well, you know what? I think it's really important we have the same name, and he took my name. Now, he'll tell everybody it was because he lost a bet, but I was able to find someone, right, who can play in my little sandbox of what makes me happy, which is, okay, you believe we should have the same name, you change yours.
You know, um, I admire you for actually being able to take control of your life. And I also feel very happy for you that you found somebody really fully understanding, because that had allowed you to be you and to also express your desires. And I love, from what you're just sharing with me, I love the fact that you can openly communicate without fear that you're going to be penalized for being so expressive and open of your thoughts. Those are really great tips. And also in my life coaching as well, I always tell people, regardless of whatever you want to do in your life, let it be about life, relationships, or even careers. There are three things that you have to do. Make a decision. You have to make a decision in your life of what you want to become or what you want to attract in your life. And then the second one is surround yourself with people who will support that. And sometimes you need to hire a coach, sometimes you need to hire a therapist, sometimes you just have to be around friends who are positive and supportive of you. Okay. And the third one is take massive inspired action, because once you make a decision, if you don't do anything to change your circumstances, if you're still in the same place, nothing is going to happen. Otherwise, all you're thinking about will just remain a wish if you don't take action. So you please know that in life, all of this, the world is your oyster, but once you have to make a decision of what you want to invite, you can design your own life now. We are grown up, and quite frankly, when we go through so many years of our lives, we go through many, many, many painful lessons, like what Dr. Rebecca and I have even been through. But all of those actually make us stronger, wiser, and more clear of what we want in our life. And we have chosen joy, peace, serenity, right? And freedom. And so you can too. And it all starts with making a decision. All right. That was our lesson for for this episode of Faces of Resilience, Dr. Rebecca. I am very happy that you have found love and the freedom that you want in your life, and I hope that you continue to spread your light with all of those who are going through grief and also through anxiety. I also wish you luck in your new job. I also wish you luck in your new career, being now a doctor of global health, and all like those fancy description that you have said, because now you are emerging into your amazingness, and I could not be happy with you, for you, and celebrate all that accomplishments. Okay. And so on that note, I'd like to say happy Sunday to everyone. I hope you pick up few nuggets of wisdom from this very inspiring story. Dr. Rebecca Fein, thank you so very much. And please thank Sid for bringing love back into your life. Until then, thank you so very much. This is Furley Almonte on Faces of Resilience. Take care. Bye-bye.